Hi, I'm going to begin my chapter 7 of my book, 7 Years to Life. It's called That's a Ball Breaker. Before I begin, I just want to apologize once again for any profanity you might read in the story. It was just a common way to communicate in New York, so if I offend anyone, I sincerely apologize. Thank you. Here we go. Chapter 7, That's a Ball Breaker. Is Chapter 7, That's a Ball Breaker. I'm in the bedroom one summer day reading a book, the name of which I cannot remember. My Aunt Ursula, who I am told I did meet at one time, but for the life of me, I cannot remember that time. Anyway, Ursula was one of those relatives that every Christmas or birthday she would always send me books. I resisted reading the books that she would send. However, one day, for whatever reason, I could not think much of anything to do that might be fun. So I picked up Hansel and Gretel and I began to read. Much to my surprise, I found the story thrilling and entertaining. From that point on, I became a voracious reader, thanks to my Aunt Ursula. This story, however, is not about how I discovered my love of reading. It is about the second time I became angry and then allowed my mood to escalate into a state of rage. At the same time that I was reading the book in my bedroom, my mom had some friends over and they were playing the card game called Canasta. This was not the first time that these particular ladies got together to enjoy a game of cards. They usually began playing around 2 in the afternoon and would finish roughly around 5, so they could prepare dinner for their husbands and children. Remember, this was the 1950s, and working women were extremely rare. I can imagine afternoons for these women were exceedingly boring, and playing cards was a welcome respite. I had arrived home at about 3 o'clock, and that is when I went to the bedroom and began reading Hansel and Gretel. Playing cards also provided them with an opportunity to gossip, have a drink or two, and generally get pretty loud. I have been home other times when they were having fun, laughing, and trying to talk over each other. I don't know what it was about this time, but all I can remember is hearing my mom say very loudly, "That's a ball buster." I don't know what came over me. The more they laughed and the louder they got, my anger became less controllable. I had just turned 11 years old. I walked out into the living room where they were playing cards and yelled in my loudest possible voice, "Why don't you fucking bitches shut your mouths and get the hell out of here?" Stunned silence and complete shock enveloped the room with a thick fog of disbelief. My mom broke down in tears as her friends hugged her and left. As they were leaving, I flipped the card table over, scattering cards and glasses everywhere. The whole event devastated my mom, and it is something that I regret having done still to this day. After the drama had died down, and my 4'11" mom tried to beat me within an inch of my life, she grounded me for a very, very long time. The first few days after the incident, while I was grounded, I had the opportunity to take a deep look inside myself. As I searched for answers, I could not understand for the life of me why I behaved in the way I did. If psychoanalysis was as sophisticated then as it is now, I may have been provided with coping tools and possibly could have avoided the whole mess. I think I became thought of by many of the adults in the area as a bad seed. I can assure you that I never intended to hurt my mother so deeply. The feeling of a small nuisance causing uncontrollable anger and rage is something that I have struggled with my entire life. Slowly, over these last 44 years or so, I have developed coping skills that has greatly decreased my angry reactions to the nuisances that occur in life, and these skills have shown me the way to completely eliminate fits of uncontrollable rage. In fact, in the novel that I'm presently reading, a story about a 15-year-old girl's parents who will not allow her to go roller skating with her friends on one particular night. The girl very calmly tells her friend on the telephone that she will not be able to go. Her friend on the other end of the line asks if she is okay. The girl replies yes, see you next week, and then hangs up the phone. As soon as she hangs up the phone, she proceeds to completely trash her room. She destroys some of her most beloved keepsakes in this fit of rage. She then turns around and sees her father standing in the doorway with his arms spread wide, yet she remains still, looking at him defiantly. Then she runs into his arms, tears running down her cheeks, onto his shoulders, and as he strokes her hair gently, he says to her, "Honey, if you don't control your temper, it will control you." This is something that I have added to my mental toolbox, and when I feel the slightest surge of anger, I remember the saying, and not all the time, but most of the time it stops the feeling in its tracks. I know I will struggle with this affliction for the rest of my life, but I will gain a mastery over it, rendering it a nuisance rather than an affliction. My mother and I never spoke of this incident again. I feel she was able to see the man, the husband and father that I have become, and I feel confident that she did not look at me as a bad seed. It was long after this incident that she told me that the man I knew as my father was in fact my stepfather. Apparently, my birth father was a lifelong alcoholic who was prone to fits of rage. Over the years, I could tell my mom had forgiven me for this incident, but I still deeply regret the embarrassment that I caused her, and I hope to tell her that in the next life.